a white sphere, just like perfectly round, and it just accelerated instantaneously. Zoop, just gone. And then it came back a third time. What is happening?
From HV Studio, this is Unnerved.
Welcome back to the Unnerved Podcast. It's where normal people share their abnormal stories, and if you enjoy true stories of the strange and terrifying, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Chris Fricky. When was the last time you looked at the night sky? On a clear night, the lights we see have always been explained to us as stars, planets, satellites, and the occasional airplane. Whether they're near or far away, we know what these things look like in the night sky. They have a pattern, a size, even color that we recognize and can rationally explain. But not all objects have a clear explanation. In today's story, Young encountered something in the sky that would change his perspective on reality and would leave him with more questions than answers. This is his story.
I'm Young Mang, and back in early 2016, probably around the end of February or early March, I had a really weird experience that I can't really logically or rationally explain. It's kind of weird having like everything in your entire life make sense and be explainable except for one thing. And after it happened to me, I didn't really think about it much, after a week or so for several years, because my brain just kind of struggled to accept that it happened because it doesn't really make sense to me. I believe that there has to be life somewhere out there in the universe. It's so insanely huge, but I don't really know how I feel about organic beings being able to travel light years and then just fly around and do weird stuff for some reason. I'm not a big I don't know how I feel about UFOs, but here's my UFO story. In February 2016, I got my van and I started heading north through California. I started driving up the 101 through Mendocino on my way to Humboldt. And it was probably around 1 or 2 in the morning when I had a really strange experience. I was in my van, I was driving up the road, and this part of the highway, it goes through some thick forests and even redwood forests. It's this heavily forested highway up in Northern California, and it's long and winding. It goes back and forth, makes a lot of turns, and it gets pretty narrow at points. There's another car coming in the other direction maybe once every 10 or 15 minutes or so. I'm basically the only person on the road. And then it was around 1 or 2 in the morning. I was driving towards this kind of sharp turn up ahead that went around this corner to the left. As I was approaching this turn, I saw this really, really bright light around the corner in front of me. I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. Maybe there's a big truck coming this way, or like a rest stop up ahead or something like that. The road kind of straightened out. Like once I came around the corner, it went straight for a ways. And I saw this really bright light above the road in front of me. And everything around me was illuminated like it was daylight. I could see like the bark on the trees. Like when I glanced left and right, after a second, I kind of looked around and I was like, wow, this is the brightest light I think I've ever seen in my life. And it took my eyes a few seconds to adjust. And then I was just looking around and it was like I was driving in the middle of the day, but the light was eerily white. It was this super white light that was unlike any other light source. Like it didn't look like incandescent or LED or any other kind of light that I'd seen before. It was like almost coated everything in white, and this light was so bright that there was dark defined shadows behind the trees, like going towards this one single source of light. It was really bizarre, and I was looking at it for a few seconds, like my eyes adjusted to it, and then I'm looking like directly at it, just trying to figure out like what is that? Like, is that like, am I coming towards like a rest stop like that has one of those really tall like cluster light things like up at the top that are like super bright, like for rest stops? Like, is it like a helicopter? Is it like a meteor? Like, what is happening? Like, what is this strange light? After like about 10 seconds or so, like my eyes kind of adjusting to like what's around me, I'm looking up at this light source and I notice that there's just this sphere, a white, plain, almost like matte sphere, just like perfectly round, just white. It looked weird. It like looked like something like out of like a 3D rendering program. Like it looked like someone got into like Blender and just made like a perfect white sphere. And as I'm driving at it, I noticed that it's like kind of close. It's maybe 150 yards or so in front of me. Like it's just a couple hundred feet in front of me, and it was maybe like 80 to 100 feet off the ground. And the sphere was pretty big. It was like probably about 15 or 20 feet across. Like it was this huge, plain, just strange looking sphere just in front of me, just floating above the road. As I was driving at it, it didn't seem to get any closer or further away. And looking back on that, I find that super creepy. Like it was like matching speeds with me or like tracking me or something. I just drove for probably there about like 45 seconds or so, just like floating just above the road, this insanely like bright white light that like for some reason like it didn't really seem to have like any glare or like like astigmatism like lines like coming off of it kind of thing. Like when you see like a really bright light source, like it didn't like hurt to look at. It was like this super soft white light that was just bizarre. Like I've never, like it really stood out to me. Like I've never seen like a light like it, and I'm just super confused. Definitely just more confused than anything. I'm just like trying to make sense of what I'm looking at and why everything around me is lit up as if it's the middle of the day, like when it's 1 a.m. in the redwoods. I'm just driving straight down this road, just staring at this thing, just trying to puzzle out like what the am I looking at? Like what? After about 45 seconds, it just shoots off towards like the 2 o'clock over the horizon. And it just accelerated instantaneously. Zoop, just gone. in less than a second.
Like way faster than a drone or, you know, any sort of aircraft could actually accelerate.
Yeah, like it was like the sphere that looked like it was like rendered in like a 3D program, just like a super plain white sphere. It was like someone like in that program just like grabbed it and just super quickly just drug it off in one direction kind of thing. There was like no acceleration. It was just suddenly going this one certain speed kind of thing. Just like all of a sudden, it just boom, however fast it was going, like zoop, just shot off over the horizon in like 1 second. Like just zoop, just gone. There was kind of like a white streak behind it, like this like linear, like kind of like white streak behind it. But I like looking back, I don't know if like that was like something that emitted, or if it was just like so bright and moved so quick that like like my eyes made kind of a streak behind it from it like moving across my vision.
And was there a noise?
I didn't notice any noise at that point, but I had my windows up and I was driving like pretty quick, and it just shot off over the horizon. And the moment it did, I was returned to super pitch blackness, because in that area there's not really any like towns or cities or other cars or light pollution. It's the middle of the woods, and super dark, and the only light source is at that point my headlights, like looking down the road in front of me. I'm not like, I don't know, like scared or anything. I was just at that point just extremely confused and kind of like bewildered, and just like, okay, wait, what? Like what just happened? Like what the was that? Like what is going on? Was just confused. What was that? Was that like a meteor that like was breaking up in the sky and like coming straight at me or something, and then eventually like shot? Like was that like two meteors? Like was that like a drone thing? Like was that like a, I don't know, like some sort of illusion, or I don't know, like am I kind of losing it? Like for reference, I've never had any hallucinations before. I've never hallucinated anything in my life. Like there's nothing I've experienced that like someone standing beside me couldn't like also verify. Like I don't have any sixth sense or any, I don't know, like I've never like hallucinated anything. Like, and it was there for like a solid like 40 seconds, and like everything in my vision was like so radically different like while this was happening, that like I was like, I don't know if I could have hallucinated. I don't think that's how hallucinations work. I don't know, but I was just trying to figure out like what the is going on. And I wish this was the end of the story, because like if it was, like I could probably chalk it up to that was a weird thing that happened. I wonder what that was about. But I'm driving down the road, and 10 minutes later or so, I was, making some turns, going left, going right. I come to a part of the road where it straightens back out. It's dark in front of me. And then all of a sudden, from like around 2 o'clock, it shoots back, just zoop, just as fast as it left. It kind of zoops back in front of me to the same distance, like in front of me and like above me as it was before, just directly in front of my van as I'm driving at it, just floating above the road, like a couple hundred feet out, like about 100-ish feet up. And it came back. I kind of blinked for a second, and then it kind of hit me, and I was like, it's back. Something is happening. Like, this is, my stomach dropped. Like, I got pretty freaked out at this point. I was like, what is happening? It came back. Like, something is happening. Like, this is a thing that is happening to me. What is it? And after like driving for around like 10 or so seconds, like I just slowed way down to like maybe like 20 miles an hour. So I was just creeping along the road, like at this thing, just floating, just white sphere with like this light all around it. And I was just driving at it for like a total of like a minute. and I had my windows down. At this point, I had rolled my windows down like after the first time it left, like get some air. And so going like 20 miles an hour or so, like down this road with my windows down, I'm just like listening and looking at it, just staring at it. And I'm listening, like trying to listen for like helicopter rotors or like drone fans or anything. And all I could hear was just like the crunch of my tires like moving across the road as I went at it. Like it was like just super, super quiet outside. I never heard it make a peep. I was just driving at it for like that time. It was there like a solid minute. Like I was just driving at it and I was just slow, like on the road, just like staring at it, just no idea what to do. Pretty freaked out. I'm like, what the does it want? What is it? What is happening? What could it possibly be? Like, I had no idea what to do. Then all of a sudden it just shot off like kind of 5 o'clock, like almost like directly over me, just shot off like out of my view. And once again, I'm like in total darkness except for like my headlights. And I was going really slow at this point, and it scared the hell out of me when it shot over me. So I pulled over on the side of the road and got out of my car, just stood. I just took like one step outside of the car and was just like kind of hanging onto the door, just like looking off like in the direction that it flew off to, just not really sure what to make of what the just happened or what that was or what I should do in response to it. Like I didn't know like what action to take. I just kind of stood there for like about a minute, just staring off into the direction I saw it like shoot off to. And after a minute or so, I got back in my car, was like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So I just got back in my car and I kept driving towards my destination, which was still at this point probably like, I don't know, like 2 hours away or so. And I'm driving. I think I saw like maybe one car or maybe one or two cars like for like the time that I was driving. Like after this, I only saw like one or two cars like in the next probably like another like 10 minutes or so. And then it came back a third time. Oh, it's back. At this point, I was pretty freaked out. I was pretty scared. And I'm looking up at it, and I just floored it. I didn't know what else to do. I was just like, oh. When I was going, normal speed the first time, super slow the second time, and this time fast as hell, it seemed to stay like exactly the same distance, like in front of me and like above me. Like I never seemed to get any closer or further away. It was just perfectly in this one spot, like in front of me. And after like a few seconds, like I kind of realized that was happening, so I just kind of kept it at about 90. And the third time, it was probably only there for like maybe 15 seconds. And that time it shot off like towards like kind of 10 o'clock over the horizon. And that was the last time I saw it. I slowed down back to, freeway speeds or whatever, and just kind of thought about what just happened for the rest of my drive up to my destination where I was gonna crash for the night. And I had no idea what to make of it. I don't really have any explanation at this point to what I saw. It was not the most pleasant experience. It was pretty freaky and confusing. I didn't think of like the whole like, oh, why didn't you pull your phone out and take a video or whatever? And it was kind of so rattling to my brain that like I did not think of that until hours later. And I still kicked myself in the heel over that. And yeah, it was just a very strange, frustrating experience. And now at this point, I'm kind of just left with this weird story that I've at this point only told like my parents, a couple of my friends. I have this weird story that probably most people are not going to believe, and I'm kind of hesitant to tell anyone because they might think that I was, a liar, wanted attention, or am a little crazy, or like might have had a delusional period or two in my life. So I'm kind of hesitant to really tell anyone that like I know in my personal life because I don't really know what to make of it, and I have like zero proof that any of this happened, but it did, and it kind of keeps me up at night sometimes, even though after it happened, I thought about it like a lot for like a week or two, and then like my brain just kind of didn't think about it much, like except for like random moments for the next few years, just because it was just so illogical and strange and irrational that my brain was probably just like, I don't know what to make of this. Let's kind of not engage with this memory. And yeah, it wasn't until recently that I finally decided to tell a couple people. And I don't know if I feel any better or worse.
Well, I will say the fact that you came forward and shared the story. The thing is, the more and more people talk about their experiences, the better, because the more people that come forward like you have, the more we'll understand it. People spend their whole lives wanting an experience like this to happen, that are UFO enthusiasts or whatever. Do you wish this experience didn't happen to you?
Yeah, I probably. Like it was really interesting. I think it's probably like a pretty rare thing that I got to experience, whatever it was. And and there's, so many people that, would pay anything to have that experience. But having gone through it and just how kind of freaky and kind of unnerving it was, don't think it's a net positive in my life. I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably like wish that I just drove along that road and made it to my destination without anything like that happening.
The experience that Young had that night is something most of us can't even fathom. It's safe to say that UFOs are in the realm of the unknown, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. UFOs should no longer be a subject of ridicule because the facts are more evident than any time in our history. The more we talk about UFOs, the more we'll understand. Photo and video evidence, along with countless testimonies from civilians and respected military personnel, have proven to be undeniable.
Are UFOs real? And if they are, what are they? Today, a congressional committee questioned leaders of our intelligence community, hoping to learn more about unidentified flying objects spotted by pilots and other military personnel.
Unidentified aerial phenomena are a potential national security threat, and they need to be treated that way.
For the first time in more than 50 years, a public congressional hearing was held on unidentified aerial phenomena, the military's term for UFOs.
UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real. They need to be investigated, and many threats they pose need to be mitigated.
It's hard to say just how many UAPs have been seen because for years, pilots and military personnel were afraid to tell others what they saw.
For too long, the stigma associated with UAPs has gotten in the way of good intelligence analysis. Pilots avoided reporting or were laughed at when they did.
There's another thing. It's rotating. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
So what you're telling me is that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are real.
Bill, I think we're beyond that already. The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
You know how this sounds. It sounds nutty, wacky.
Look, Bill, I'm not telling you that it doesn't sound wacky. What I'm telling you, it's real. The question is, what is it? What are its intentions? What are its capabilities? Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
Thank you guys for listening to Unnerved. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please share it with your friends and family. And if you could, in return, please leave a review. It really helps out the podcast and allows other people to see it. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate that. If you also want to see photos related to each episode, be sure to follow us on our Instagram at unnervedpodcast. And if you would also like to leave a voicemail or question of any kind, you can do that by following the link in the show notes that says speakpipe.com/unnervedpodcast. All right, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Take care.